Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is Randy over at Perfect Video Conferencing. This is one of our recordings of product testing. I'm going to look at a Lumens camera post-infocom, and it's a pleasure to provide these videos to you. If you see any product you'd like to see tested in fuller detail, send it to us. There'll be some details you'll see in a moment, and ultimately tell your friends about this, buy these cameras from us, and look for us for our services. On screen, you saw our website. I wanted to show a little bit about the agenda for this recording. It is really about the Lumens VC-B10U. It's a 4K camera designed for a huddle room. It's got a great microphone, good speaker. I'm actually recording on a life-size kit because I want to show a comparison between some of what we've seen in the USB space and what we see in the codec or video conferencing kit space. So certainly the industry has evolved where you can take a computer and some USB peripherals and create a kit, but there is some really good magic about having a microphone array and a speaker array that just does everything out of the box, and a camera that does some pan tilting and zooming. And obviously life size is one of the best in the industry for that experience, the only one doing 4K at the bridge. So if you get a 4K USB camera like this Lumens camera, you then want to make sure you're plugging into an infrastructure that supports a higher resolution and is planning to support kind of the 4K cloud bridge resolution. Going to be a key thing for you to consider. So why this camera? We saw it at Infocom. It's got a kind of a cool remote and some white balancing, 64 presets, 120-degree angle, and so there's some things about the 4K camera space, the fixed focus digital pan tilt zoom, that we're very interested in. It makes it easy to deploy and really easy for your IT folks to support, but then more importantly, your end users get a really enhanced experience, and you'll see some of that during this recording. So logistically, I wanted to go through kind of the 4K PTZ digital experience, some auto light adjustments that happen, kind of mounting kits, and talk about the price, which is $400 being incredible and disruptive, and then a little bit of an audio test. So you're hearing me on the life-size system. You'll hear me through a Logitech camera, and then the Lumens camera, because it does have microphones on it. We'll typically separate the microphone from the camera experience, but you've seen, if you've looked at some of our other videos, we did the Huddle cam, the Logitech Brio, the Panicast, the Huddle, a whole Aver. I mean, a whole host of the manufacturers make these great cameras with some pretty darn good microphones. You can get a all-in-one simple to deploy when you're going to hundreds of room experience, but again, it is oftentimes better to separate the microphone and speaker from the camera behavior. You get some echo and some infrastructure challenges, but work with us. We're your professionals, and we can help you figure that out. Great. The camera itself, I'll show a little bit about the lab and how I have it set up, as you see here on screen. The camera itself is, again, the VC-B10U. I mentioned the USB piece that we love about it is plug and play. So it's 2.0 compatible. Some of your older computers will support it. We don't see that on a lot of the 4K cameras. And the ease of using this remote is nice. You don't have to use the remote, but you'll see some functions of what it does. It's not really great for a travel companion camera, but I'll show that as well. So the setup here in the office, this quirky little lab is where I'm sitting. Again, you've got the life-size kit kind of doing the key recording, just a MacBook Pro, and you'll see the Logitech and the Lumens plugged in there. Let me zoom in a little on that. So yeah, essentially the mounting kit that you see with the Lumens works better when you actually mount it on the TV, which is kind of this next picture. So here's kind of how they're setting. Note that the Logitech does a little bit better kind of pan tilty zoomy functionality. It's smaller form factor. The Lumens mounting kit isn't the greatest, so I wouldn't typically use it for home office. I would use it for what it's designed for. A rare thought there. That's actually putting it on top of a TV or below a TV, and the mounting bracket is perfect for connecting it against the wall, putting it in the fixed focus location. The kit comes with the standard 8-foot USB cable, the mounting kit, this awesome remote, and then the actual camera and some instructions. Don't bother reading those, call us. But as far as the camera goes, I mentioned there's some front-facing microphones. That's an IR sensor, and in typical Iris fashion, you see some shuttery kind of things that help the camera do its job for white balancing. And then the backside has a little dip switch you can pair the remote properly, and then a channel so you can kind of push the USB connection in and get it the heck out of the way when you're mounting it. So fairly simple for an AV integrator to do it right, hide the cables, and make it easy for your IT team to support, which is part of the key thing. In this particular room, I wanted to show some before and after. So I want to go over to the LifeSize app and show the cameras as they behave. I'm also going to turn on the microphone. So again, right now you're seeing the built-in laptop camera, what the Mac is seeing as kind of a FaceTime camera, and I've suppressed the microphones in this call, so you can see that I'm muted here. I will unmute momentarily so you can actually hear the microphones as a comparison against the built-in, against the Logitech, and then finally I'll wrap up when talking about the Lumens. First things first, it's I think important for you to take a look at what systems can do. So this one here has a preset to zoom in a little tighter on me, and so that gives you a slightly better angle of me, frames the room a little bit better. These presets, there's a home location, kind of pretty easy to set, and then I can obviously use a remote control or the touch screen to move, manipulate, and manage the camera. And the smoothness of this is what the mechanical pan tilt zoom gets you. So if you're wondering why people jump from this to a digital pan tilt zoom, is that the digital fixed focus cameras are less expensive to make. You don't have the parts that are needed to have it go up, down, left, right. You don't have the control protocol. You just got one 4K image that then you can use software to zoom in on. So they're cheaper, they're easier, and you get kind of a good experience. Most of the pan tilting and zooming in the 4K space is a bit herky-jerky. So I've got a preset set for this art in the background. I'm just going to go to that. And then when I get over to the Lumens camera, I'm going to show that as a comparison. First things first, here's the view that you get from the Logitech camera. One of my certainly favorites. And what I love about it is immediately you get to see that it's in its software has done some color correction. It saturates the colors a little bit, but the bridge also will do that depending on the platform you use. So you can tweak a room without having to spend a lot of money on fixing the room, essentially. So it's a pretty good experience. I love this one for my home office travel experience. It doesn't do a great job when you point the camera at you with a window behind you, so you get that witness protection look. So if that's what you're going for, go with it. The real test here, though, becomes, again, a better angle on any of these cameras. And then when I go over to the Lumens, you'll see a wider range in frame. So because it's picking up more data, I would want to zoom in to get a tighter image. And I'm going to do a comparison first, zooming in on me, and watch the auto white balance. So I zoom in first, like you do with all the other cameras, and then I can go up, down, left, right. If you've compared this to any of the other recordings, the smoothness here from my touch points on the remote to the motion on the video is far superior than anything we've seen. So Lumens has done a great job there. The other thing we like is that there is just a brightness clearly indicated on the remote. Go that way for you. Right. There's a brightness button that you can then use to go up, down, left, right. So as I do that, or darker and lighter, sorry. Obviously too light. Let's do the side-by-side on the picture behind me. So I'll zoom out, find that picture, zoom over. In and over. End user effect. Wrong direction. And this camera supports 64 presets, so had I done my homework a little bit more, I could have actually just had these set on presets. But there's your side-by-side. It does look a little saturated for my preference. So I'm going to go in a little bit tighter. All right, that's as far in as I can go. But it does look a little washed out. So if I change the brightness, you can see that I'll get a little closer to what the life-size experience is. So a little richer tones as I reduce the amount of light. Great experience overall for a camera, and kind of a surprise to us that the $400 camera can do all of this. So bravo, let's do this in hundreds of rooms rather than just the $10,000 camera in one room. All right, zoom back out for a second. All right, there we go. So I got a little jerky there on the software. Sorry about that. So now that I've zoomed out, notice that it's gotten darker. So the iris will sort of assume that the end user is going to go in and correct. What we'll typically do is we'll set it up for a conference room and then leave the darn thing alone. Probably the better experience. Lastly, I mentioned I wanted to talk about microphones. So in order to do that, what I'll end up by doing is muting here on life size, so you won't hear any audio for a couple of seconds, and then I'll unmute on the laptop. So the first thing I'll want to do is go over to the Logitech camera, so you can hear that. I'll choose the Logitech video. Muting on life size. I've unmuted at the desktop. I'll go back out so you can kind of see a comparison. So here's your Logitech camera, Logitech microphone. Make sure I got those settings right. And then a test. Well, that's the internal microphone. So here's a Logitech camera with your internal microphone. This is the laptop's built-in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll go over to Logitech. Still the Logitech camera, Logitech microphone. I find this to be pretty good if I'm in a quiet home office. Not so great if there's background noise, fans running. It's not what it's designed for. I typically use a Sennheiser headset, and people love the audio quality. Final test, and thank you for tuning in. Again, if you've got any more questions, you can reach out to us at support@perfectvc.com. Lumens camera, a little bit washed out in the background, so I will move over to the Lumens audio while I make those changes and talk about it. So here's test 1, 2, 3 on Lumens audio. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, frame myself up a little bit better. The less of the background lights I get, the better the experience for the far end. So I've just now mitigated some of the washout by removing the overhead lights. You're hearing the audio on the Lumens microphone array, but it is still a little bit washed out. I can go to that remote and actually darken it, brighten it, all right, to give you a little bit more of me in the front. I can also open the blinds and give myself some front-facing lighting. But you can see the comparison difference between the Lumens camera and the life-size camera. Digital PTZ versus auto-adjusting. And do the math yourself. These cameras scale up to hundreds of rooms. We'd like to build those for you. Got any more questions? Again, this one's Randy. And thank you, Lumens, for letting us test. We love this camera.